Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Mamas in Miami, where together we're navigating parenthood with unwavering solidarity and fierce love of one another. According to the CDC, each year about 5,700 babies are born in the U.S. with Down syndrome. This means that it occurs in one in every 640 babies, more or less. Down syndrome is a genetic condition where you're born with an extra chromosome, but in today's world, you could lead a healthy life with supportive care of family and friends, as you're about to see with our next guest. I would like to introduce you all to my friend Caroline Rickert Cardenas. She is a mom of four, and she has one special little girl with an extra special chromosome. Her name is Lily, and we're going to hear more about her journey in just a second as soon as she signs on. So bear with us. We've got a lot of ground to cover in 45 minutes or less. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Caroline?
I'm good, thank you.
Your earrings are gorgeous.
Thank you. Did I do this right? Am I on? I'm good.
You are perfect.
Good.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I know that you have boys getting out of early dismissal, so we're going to jump right into it. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's Caroline Cardenas. I'm from Miami. My husband is too. We're childhood sweethearts. We went to preschool together. We have been married almost 16 years, and we have four beautiful children, and we're very blessed. So thanks for having me, Christy.
Anytime. Can you give your age ranges? Because it still blows my mind that you have them back to
I know.
back.
Well, it's funny because I feel like I remember when you told me you were pregnant, I was like, didn't know, but I was pregnant too. So Raleigh is 12, Patrick is 9, Spencer is 7, and Lily is 4.
I don't know how you do it.
It's busy.
So tell us a little more about your special Lily.
Sure. So Lily is she's the joy of our life. So we found out, Lily was a surprise. She was our fourth baby. We found out summer of 2019. And like my other pregnancies, I was very, very sick. It got worse with each pregnancy. I know we talked about this because you got very sick too, at least with Danny. Um, we found out after I went and took the test to determine the gender, or at least that's what I thought I was going to take a test for. And I remember I hadn't taken that test with my other children, and I said, "Oh, great! So when do I find out the gender?" They're like, "Oh, it'll be a few weeks, but if there's any issues, we will call you sooner." And that was a Thursday afternoon, and Monday morning, 9 a.m., the phone rang, and it was my doctor. And I'm sorry, it's a genetic counselor actually that called me first, and she told me that I had an 81% chance of having a child with Down syndrome, um, and that it was a girl. It was completely shocking. I remember I was really sick, so I stood up out of bed and I literally fell to the ground. I was in such shock and disbelief. And for the first time, I called my husband at the office. I typically wouldn't, interrupt a work day for anything, and I couldn't get a hold of him, so I was in a panic. And the secretary went and pulled him out of a meeting, and he came home, and we were in a real season of grief, if you will. I think we were grieving the child that we thought we were going to have. Um, but here we are 4.5 years later, and if I could go back, I would have not cried one of those tears. But I think at the time it was just very sudden and unexpected, especially after having three just typical children. So, yeah.
Did any further testing become a requirement at that point?
So they offered me the testing that is done at 13 weeks. But there's a high chance that that could harm the baby, so I opted not to. I did opt to do the amnio at 16 weeks. When I went to do the amnio, I remember the ultrasound tech. First, they did like a sonogram, and they're looking, and I was like, is everything okay here? And they're like, oh yeah, the baby's just, she won't move around. And I was like, okay, I don't know. And they're like, they bring in another tech, and they're looking, and I'm like, okay, I know what's wrong. And then the doctor comes in, and he looks, and he's like, the baby has a hole in her heart. And I look over, my mom and David are both in tears. And what I didn't know at the time is that 50% of children with Down syndrome have congenital heart disease. And so we kind of knew right then and there that Lily was going to have Down syndrome. It was a confirmation that we needed. So we knew she had a hole in her heart. We knew that she was going to require open heart surgery. And as early as, anywhere between 4 to 6 months. So we knew that in utero.
Your hormones must have been all over the place, pregnancy hormones. How did you navigate your mental and emotional health those first couple weeks?
Yeah, I think for me, my faith is such an important part of my life. I really don't think I could have gotten through anything in life without my faith. So my community around me just really helped me through. We had a lot of people praying for us. Um, And once I knew what Lily's diagnosis was, I just had a real like supernatural moment with the Lord at some point, and I just had a lot of peace. And in a way, I think my grieving turned into humility, and I was like, "Wow, Lord, you're entrusting me with something so special. Like I am in no way a perfect mom. Was having, I'm having a hard time even raising three boys. And now, I have a fourth child that's coming, with extra special needs. Um, so I think once I reached that point of peace, everything was pretty good. And I just got really excited for her. So yeah, it was a turning point, some point mid pregnancy when I was kind of not as sick anymore and I could kind of bring myself together and understand what was coming. I'm glad I found out in utero. For me, I'm a planner, so I liked to know what was coming. So we just planned for her as best we could, like we would any other child. So
And how did you introduce this topic to your boys, who were still fairly small?
yeah, they were really little at the time. I think we are very blessed with I know I'm biased, but they're just three very sweet, manageable children. They're very empathetic. They always have been. And so for them, even before they, kind of understood Lily's diagnosis, they were just so excited for a baby sister. One brother would just always sing to my stomach. Another one shared all the things he was going to teach her. So I think for them, it took a really long time for them to kind of understand that Lily, had certain needs that she was going to develop at her own pace. She still is developing at her own pace, but they all developed at their own pace too. It's just hers looks a little different. So I think, I always say their biggest blessing is her, and her biggest blessing is them. She just has three wonderful older brothers that just love her so much. So
You can
yeah,
see that in every photo that you post.
thank you.
Lily's medical journey, I mean, started the moment she was born because I almost felt like your clock was ticking with her heart. Um, how did so you give birth, and was your birth natural?
So
Did you
yeah,
have any
four
complications?
natural births. She actually, after Raleigh, all of them were 39 weeks. They needed to be induced. So Lily, I had planned for March 21st, which is actually World Down Syndrome Day. That's when she was supposed to be born. The Saturday before that, her brother had a baseball game, and I had back pain. And I remember my friend Virginia looks at me. She's like, "You should probably go see the doctor." And I was like, "No, I'm not ready. Hair's not ready. Nails not done. We're not. She's not coming early. Like my children don't come early." And sure enough, the pain got worse. And I called my doctor, and he's like, "You should come to the hospital." And I remember um, we got to the hospital at like 4:39, and like by 5:50 she was out. I was 7 centimeters dilated. She flew out. It was the fastest, easiest, dreamiest delivery ever. She just made it so easy. So from the moment that we met her, she's a delight. She is not by any way a stress. She's just full of joy, full of love. Um, so we knew that she had the diagnosis. We knew that the open heart surgery was looming. What we did not account for was COVID.
Right.
So when we gave birth, the doctors were like, "Well, this is, great, but no visitors." And I was like, "No visitors?" I said, "There's like, yeah, there's this weird virus going around." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I was like, "That's nice. At least I can like, watch Law and Order in peace and not have visitors and nurse and do all these things by myself." But we just really didn't account for that Monday morning, nobody being back in school, nobody going to the office. So that was really hard for us because Lily was born with a heart condition. So if
We
we
lost.
were,
There you go.
I,
Can you repeat that? We lost
yeah,
you.
I said, um, COVID was very hard for us because we really could not see anyone because it was very risky if she were to get COVID with a heart condition. So we really didn't, see anyone other than a medical team for the first 4 months of her life, and it was very hard on family um, and friends. And so we did, drive-bys, and people saw her from afar. Um, and then I remember, we have a wonderful cardiologist, Dr. Moss, and everything that she said was going to happen happened, like to a T. And Lily was basically in heart failure for the first 4 months of her life, but they said once she had that repair, she was going to be a new child, and she was. July 28th, 2020, she went in. She had her heart surgery, and 5 days later, she was home, and her heart is probably more perfect than mine. She's thriving. Um, During that time, she was in the hospital about a month, and COVID was happening, and David and I were going back and forth to the hospital, and the medical team was finally like, "You guys need to bring in, you need to bring in help, bring your nanny back, all this stuff." So we did, and unfortunately, our children got COVID, the boys, and so we could not see her for 12 days, which was probably the hardest thing we've dealt with as parents. I was nursing at the time, so I was pumping and dropping off milk to men in hazmat suits. Like it was like super heightened because she was on the cardiac ICU floor. So anyone getting COVID on that floor could have been fatal. So it was really hard. We ended up, two of the boys got COVID, and they were completely asymptomatic. And David and I never got it, but it was really hard not being with her during that time. She had 27 different nurses during that stay, and I would call every time there was a shift and talk to them, and Dr. Moss would go and sing to her. So that was really hard. But when she came home, it was like she had a new life. She had a new heart, and yeah. And honestly, ever since then, there really has been no. She's wonderful. So
That's
yeah,
amazing. I can't imagine what that must have been like during that time. I remember hearing, "You're not going to believe it, but Caroline can't get to the hospital because of COVID, because the boys have it."
it
And
was awful.
I was like, "The baby's in the hospital." And then you post this gorgeous video of her in the NICU just smiling. And we're like, "Lily's fine." She's in great shape. We lost you again.
You there? I said she did great. She's a real trooper. So.
So up until now, has that been her biggest medical hurdle?
It is. She's very blessed. She rarely gets sick. She has no other issues. She is supposed to be wearing glasses, but she is a very strong-willed little girl and refuses. But no, she's great. She has typical developmental delays that come with the diagnosis that we just work through, and we support and encourage her. Um, but she's a blessing in our lives. So can't imagine life without her.
I can't either.
Oh.
What advice would you give to other parents who are navigating this similar journey
Yeah, so
that you
I've
dealt with?
actually been honored to speak to a lot of moms who get this diagnosis in utero, and I know what that feels like. And I always tell people who kind of know someone that's going through it, like congratulate them because they're going to get to see life through a new lens. And I really do consider parents or siblings of children with Down syndrome the lucky few because you just have a child that is just so full of love and kindness and forgiveness, and it really takes away some of the minutia that we kind of focus on in life. Um, but again, like I said before, I think I cried a lot when I initially found out. I think that's a normal, but I truly, I mean it so much when I say if I could go back, I would have not have cried one tear. I really wouldn't have, because I just had no idea what was coming. And I think that's our society. I think a lot of times we're just very ignorant to things we don't know a lot about. I think I can't remember how long ago, but for a long time, they were not operating on children with Down syndrome that had heart conditions. And so their lifespan was a lot shorter because their heart would eventually fail in their 20s. And then they realized, hey, they're just like everyone else. There's no reason that we cannot go in and repair their hearts. And interestingly enough, children that are born with heart conditions, Down syndrome children born with heart conditions, do much better in surgery than typical children. I don't know why, but I feel like, as a society, we're very, ignorant about a lot of things. And, in our home, we treat Lily well. She's the only girl, so she's a little spoiled, but we treat her like our other children. We expect from her. We push her, we celebrate her, we discipline her, we do all the things we do with our boys. And so our goal is that she's not ever treated differently, but that she's treated like everyone else. So.
Absolutely. So you already have three very rambunctious boys
Mhm.
to deal with. How do you navigate a family of four children and one with special needs? And three boys, when I tell you that she has like a football team, a
Yeah,
soccer team, a
yes.
basketball, like they are the
They're
sportiest boys I know. So
They're
how on earth?
busy and they're all doing two sports, so it's busy. So last year, Lily was like my co-Uber driver. That's what I call I'm the Uber driver. So she was with me wherever I went. This year, I'm really trying to change that for her because she's getting bigger and she has her own things. Um, you know, I know this is going to sound crazy, but she is a child that's never had a temper tantrum. She does not complain. She does not cry. She's very much go with the flow. So she does whatever we do. She goes to school, she comes back, she's exhausted. We've started including some therapies after school in the home, just to alleviate kind of the running around. And we just have a good system down. I think, I'm very blessed to have a very wonderful and supporting and involved dad who helps a lot and is there a lot. And we just really value, family time, and we've learned to say no to a lot of things, right? Because I feel like it's very easy to spread yourself thin and go to everything and do everything. And so we've learned to kind of take a step back and really see, what's important to our family and where we want to allocate our time. So that is definitely a learned behavior, and we're still learning through that. But yeah, just kind of getting organized. We have to be super organized and do as best as we can. So yeah.
Caroline, at what point, I don't know this for sure about you, but I know at some point you stopped working full time. Was that when you knew Lily was on the way, or was that before with your
That
boys?
was before with the boys, and I've kind of, I would, I got my real estate license in 2019, so right before I got pregnant with Lily, actually. Um, but again, not something I ever thought I could commit to full time because it was already busy at home. And then, since then we've had like a lot of life interruptions, pregnancy, and then the open COVID, and then open heart surgery, and so I finally, and then as you know, this year I lost my mom. So there's just been a lot of things that have kind of happened along the way. And I feel like I'm finally getting my head above water and able to kind of focus a little bit more into things that, I'm interested and like to do. So, yeah, kind of things kind of worked out if I look back, the way that they did, just, kind of pulling back at the right time, allowing myself to be in a flexible field where I could, do as much or as little as I wanted. So, yeah.
How much time do you actually spend in the car, Caroline?
A lot. Well, I have to say, David takes all four children to school every morning.
Wow.
So that is super helpful. I always laugh because when my children leave for school, it's like a bomb went off in the house. And so I try to really like get everything organized right after they leave and then kind of start my day. And then Lily gets picked up at 1:45-ish. So it's not that much time. And then from then on, I'm in the car until, sports are done. So try to make dinner between and help with homework or, whatever we have going on. So I have a good support system and yeah, we're blessed.
That's amazing. Right now, Lily is 4, so she's in preschool.
She's in
And
preschool.
what kind of developmental delays is she facing at the moment?
So she's still not walking. That's the biggie. We've had everything checked out, and there's really no physical reason that she's not walking other than just, working at her own pace and her own time, and just that strong will. She knows that someone's going to move her or carry her or pick her up. So we have a really good team right now that's helping her. She is what we call a emerging communicator. So she does a little bit of words, a little bit of sign. So she is on her way in that department. But in a typical classroom, so she's in a program where there's role models and then there's children with certain needs. So it's actually a perfect setup for her because she's learning from the role models. But she's also in a setting that allows for her sort of needs in the classroom.
Mhm.
But she functions like a typical child in the classroom. She participates, she moves around, she sings, she dances. So she's doing great at school, loves people, loves her teachers. So we're very happy.
Oh, I bet after having, a full circus in the house with the 3
Yeah,
boys, I'm sure she's happy to do her own
yeah.
thing.
She is. She's very happy at school. So, yeah.
Caroline, I'm sure that you have researched high and low all the resources out there.
Yeah.
Can you share what your biggest resources have been for Lily up until now and for you as well?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's no handbook, right? And so that's kind of a challenge. So when she was born because of COVID, I think what's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be a social worker that comes in and explains where I can go for everything, and that did not happen. Um, I'm very fortunate where I've had time to kind of research and make phone calls, and I'm still learning along the way. But I think for me, the best resource has been other parents that have kind of gone through it. Even in the Down syndrome community, all of our children are so different, and there's different needs. There's health needs, there's developmental needs, there's children that can be in a mainstream classroom, there's children that can't be in a mainstream classroom. So I've kind of just picked up bits and pieces along the way and just done the best that I can for her. Um, so that's kind of where that's kind of there's not maybe one source. School has definitely been the biggest challenge. Um, that unfortunately there's just no one stop shop for her, and we've seen so many schools, and just finding the right fit has been very hard. The program that she's in now, she will age out this year, and so I'll be back on the hunt for the best school for her. Um, so that's probably the one area that has been the biggest challenge. And I think with all my children, right? Like there's so many schools and there's, all of our children are so different. And so finding the right school for each of their needs is not always easy. Um, so that's been the biggest challenge for her, but I'm confident I will find something that will be good for her for next year. So.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure you've also, or you'll probably start looking. Is there any financial aid or scholarship programs to help with the costs of therapy and whatever needs she may have?
Yeah, so it's, the state, unfortunately, there needs to be a lot of change, a lot of reform. There's just unfortunately not enough focus on this. And she does qualify for state funding, but she qualifies for what a typical child in a classroom that has maybe a little bit of needs qualifies for. So it's really should never be the case. Everything is requires advocacy and fighting and phone calls. Um, and it's just not really fair because a lot of parents don't have the time or the means or the know how to pick up a phone and call and know what their rights are. Um, and so that's something, right now I'm not able to focus on as much as I want to eventually because there needs to be change. Um, so there is funding available. It is not much. It's actually, especially for what the cost of specific schools go for. But her therapies are all run through insurance. Um, or we pay out of pocket. So it's, she is in a public school setting right now. So she does get services through her school, which is great. She loves her therapists that go to school, but anything outside of that is our responsibility.
That can't be easy for
No.
a family.
Right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
yes. And so it's been very eye-opening, because it's just not a fair system. It's really needs, and it's a broken system. So it needs a lot of reform.
I have no idea. I have no idea how you do it, but what I was going to say is I have no idea how this has held you back because I know what an advocate you are and how politically inclined you and David have always been. And I have no doubt that we're going to be seeing you screaming at the rooftops at some
Yes, it's
point.
actually taken a lot to keep me kind of my mouth shut,
Yeah.
because it is so disappointing and disheartening to see. Um, and even with this new voucher program the state has put into effect, and I won't go down a political road, but even with this new system put in place, which is fine, and a lot of families benefit from it, and I'm all for that. But where was the funds for all the special needs children before this? Like, why weren't they taken care of? Like, where's the outcry? And I think, in the case of Down syndrome, it is such a rare diagnosis, right? Like, there aren't many children born in the United States with Down syndrome, that there's just not, the voice is not, um, we need a bigger voice, I guess. And so Florida, unfortunately, has not gotten their act together. Many, many, many states do a lot more for children with Down syndrome. So I'm hoping to help fix that. I just, at this moment, have
Your
not been able to get
hands are full.
my hands are full right now. But that is I think there needs to be change. So yeah.
I see that in your future, and I have no doubt you're gonna rock it.
Thank you.
What are the biggest misconceptions about a child with Down syndrome?
I think, people really discredit their ability. I think someone told me once, the biggest disability in life is a bad attitude, and I truly believe that.
Love that.
Um, I think, people that have come along our journey, and therapists and teachers have all taught me the importance of pushing Lily, that she can do so much more than we give her credit for. And I think that's the case for any child I've met with Down syndrome. I think, um, there's this misconception that she can't, but really she can. She might not do everything at the same pace as everyone else. It might not be as perfect as everyone else, but she can do it. And so it's really my mission to share that with so many people, because she is just, she's such it's hard for me to think of the right word. She's such a loving, kind, sweet child. And she's a true blessing to be around. And I don't want anyone to ever kind of label her as anything else, because that's really what she is, a wonderful little girl. So,
And the relationship between her and her brothers today, I'm sure that they are her biggest advocate and
yeah.
defender, like no
Yeah.
other. When they are outside in a social setting, have they ever had to come to her defense, or have they ever encountered anything negative up until now and had to deal with
They
that?
have not.
Thank
They have
goodness.
not. So, I think with all of them, not just with Lily, I think, I always try to remind them that they are blessed with each other. And so they always have to have each other's back. And fortunately, no, they have not had to come to her defense. I'm also very, as I mentioned, I'm an open book, and I speak a lot about her. And I've spoken, we live in Miami Shores is a small town, it's a small community. And I've just been very vocal about who she is, and that she's here to, she is going to better the lives of children around, because they will learn empathy and kindness through her. And everyone has just been so loving and kind to her. And yeah, we haven't had any, um, there's been nothing that the boys have kind of had to get in and defend. But
That makes my
I feel
heart so happy because you always, unfortunately, in today's world, you always hear kids are cruel, kids are mean, but I
but
think there's
kids are
been,
cruel to typical children, right?
right.
And so I think as parents, right, we worry about all of our children, right? Whether there's, a unique ability or not. And so for me, when I look at all of them, like we have different worries for all of our children, right? And especially in a family of four, like we've got four very different personalities. And so there's different worries for each child. But I feel like with the boys, they're very equipped. They hear how we speak of her. They know how loved she is. They know how loved they are. And so, yeah,
That's amazing. I think there's a misconception, is what I was going to say, that kids are cool. I think we're living in a much more accepting society today when it comes to littler people, to like little kids,
yeah,
because they are exposed to so much more than we were 20 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, I remember way back when in the 80s, they used to call somebody with glasses four eyes.
right.
Now you don't even hear anything like that anymore. Oh, it's just a kid with glasses. Like, that's it.
Right, and I actually am. It's really nice to see brands like Target and Zara and all these brands using children with different unique abilities in their ads, as if it's, it's just typical, it's normal, it's what we see in society. So the more we can kind of normalize, what people are born with and who they are, and not just and be kind and not be mean. I just think that we're just going to create a better society. So if we can start that young, um,
I agree.
and yeah, so
Couldn't agree more. I know you're in a hurry to pick up your kids, so I just have some closing statements I want to ask you. What number one being is, how do you envision Lily's role in your family as you guys all get older?
someone told me years ago, and I really try to live by this, because if I start thinking about the future, it'll drive me crazy day by day. So Lily is, I pray for my boys' future. I pray for their future wives. I pray for her future. I hope and pray that she gets married one day. I think the boys and David will have a very hard time with that. But I want for her what I want for my boys. I know that she has such a big piece of their hearts, and vice versa. And so my prayer is that they always just stay, close together and loving to one another. And, you know, I want for her to get through school. I want for her to go to college. I want for her to experience things. I want for her to date. I want, um, I want her to live as normal of a life as her brothers do. So that's
And
kind
with
of,
your family support, I have no doubt she
yeah.
will.
Thank you.
Caroline,
The boys might give any boyfriend a hard time, but that's
I
okay.
mean, I fully don't expect for any man to be knocking on that door, because there's not only three brothers, but a very protective daddy that sings
Yes,
to her every day, my girl.
yes.
So
Yeah, loves her so much. So they, when she was born and COVID happened and he had to work from home, and so they were like, she would be in her rocker right next to him where he worked, and he would walk her like multiple times a day, and they just have a very special bond. Um,
she's
David and
daddy's
Zoe.
girl.
She is a daddy's girl, yeah, and a mommy's girl, and so she knows who to work and when. So she's so sweet.
Oh,
So,
well, Caroline, thank you so much for sharing your story. I
oh,
am sure you're
and
going to be receiving lots of DMs and messages and comments. I know that you're an open book, and I welcome anybody who has any questions to reach out to
please.
you, because I know you'd be more than happy
Oh,
to.
yeah, it's my honor. So,
Thank
yes.
you all. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Christy. Bye.